Welcome to our Priestess Circle. I am your host and High Priestess Clarity Barton, and for this full moon in Scorpio, I invite Sister Brittney Guimond to share her wisdom with us. In this episode, Brittney talks about the importance for women to cultivate Eros as our life force energy and our womb power. Brittney is a teacher and devotee of feminine spirituality. She supports women to reclaim their true origins, focusing on earth, womb, and body wisdom. Britt developed a passion for mysticism at a young age and an ability to commune with the subtle. She believes that when women honor their cycles and attune to their primordial voice of their womb and body, they are shown a clear path that is to be trusted. Brittney has studied feminine mysteries, womb cosmology, female bodywork, Reiki, Tantra, and shamanism. She offers online courses and in-person ceremonies for women to connect to their feminine embodiment and to their womb. After the discussion, Brittney will lead an embodied practice to connect to your primordial power and to feel Eros in your body. I hope that you receive tons of blessings from this discussion and practice. The circle is now open. Welcome to our Full Moon Priestess Circle. Welcome, Sister Brittney. Thank you so much for accepting to be on this podcast and to share your wisdom and to just be here as an embodiment of the goddess that you are. I love your energy and I love how you really live your teachings and you carry those teachings with you and you just being you. So thank you for bringing all of that magic into our circle today.
Thank you for having me. This is so special. Finding this path so young and coming to your women's circle is like 7 years ago almost. It's just so beautiful to see where life has brought me now. So I have so much gratitude for you and your work and your medicine and just the lineage of the feminine that just finds us and brings us together. So I'm excited to be here and to share the wisdom and coming through on this Scorpio full moon eclipse.
Yes, powerful full moon indeed. It's a blood full moon too, which means that it's a total lunar eclipse. And somehow the atmosphere of the earth makes the moon look red at a certain point. And I feel like it's really activating that divine feminine path that we're on. I definitely think it's a perfect time to talk about all of this. And Brittney and I had a lot of technical issues getting on this podcast. I think there was a lot of energy moving.
A lot of foreplay, just build up.
So we're going to try to channel all of that into Eros today with you. And I wanted to start first by asking you, what is Eros for you? How would you define it?
Yeah, for me, in my experience, Eros, it's like another word for the primordial power, the original power, the life force that ripples through us. I see Eros almost like an arrow, right? Like when we follow this life force in our life, it leads us to a clear path, this desire that's not compensatory, like in the mind, but this body wisdom, this Eros, it's really bringing us towards something. And so often we are exiling this power. We're using the mind, right? When we actually tap into the body and touch this part of ourselves, this wild, primal, chaotic, right? Like Eros, he was known as the son of chaos. He was known as like the original emptiness, this void space that was looking to be filled. In Greek mythology, they say that he was also the son of Aphrodite, the goddess of sex and fertility and love and beauty. So the way that I see like this energy, it's like this part of us looking to be filled with life, this empty void, this emptiness that could either be filled with pain, like deep desperation, or with life. And when we don't feed this void, we actually get weighed by it. This Eros, this life force actually weighs us. It becomes depressive, it becomes heavy, we become lost. when we're tending to this part of us as women, through primal movement, breath work, love making with life, all the things that can connect us to this life force, we're feeding this void. This void is not wrong. It's like a longing for life. So Eros it's not just sex. It's not just with a partner. Eros is letting life touch us, letting us be filled by life, and feeling within us, I believe, in our womb, this arrow, this focus point that's bringing us towards our true path when we listen. And this is also what I call the womb path, listening to this deep, primordial, original wisdom and tending to it, or it'll blow up our life. It'll look to be expressed, it'll come out sideways, right? Like there's all these ways that it just wants space to live and space to breathe. So for me, Eros is really tending to this deep part of myself and letting it live, letting it take up space.
That's a really beautiful way to describe it. Eros as the void and chaos, and that desire makes me think of the feminine that wants to be explored and discovered. So how do you tune in to your Eros to know where it's pointing you to? Because I imagine that it may be challenging. Some people might not easily access that place in them. And also perhaps sometimes our desires are not our true desires. So what are some practices that can help us to connect to that primordial force within us?
Yes, I love these questions. It's such a important discernment with the desire, especially, right? Ways to connect with this energy, this Eros, are, I would say, non-linear practices. So spaces where we can really let this primal part of us come alive, where we're not trying to understand what's happening, but we're just experiencing it. So it could be like a drum circle, dancing around a fire. It could be ecstatic dance. It could be just finding some space in your own home and playing music and just letting yourself get wild, letting your body just move you, getting drunk on the movement in your body. And for me, when I do this practice of just letting myself get a little bit wild and messy and primal, it doesn't take long for this sobering truth to reveal. My mind's no longer guiding me. My body's like really alive. And this voice begins to speak in me. It says, go do this, go get a drink of water, go send this message, go launch this program. Like truth is a very clear clunk voice. The mind is like this chaotic kind of monkey mind, right? It's talking, it's busy. For me, truth is quite quiet and direct. And when we're not in the mind and we're moving in the body, it has space to actually rise up and be felt and be heard. So, like I shared, getting primal, moving in the body, for me, body work, just touching my body, doing intravaginal massage or womb massage, or just really like feeling my flesh and coming out of my mind and really just letting my body move me. It's honestly so beautiful how quickly sometimes the truth can speak. And I find that a lot of us in this culture, we are afraid of this space because it asks our ego to die. It asks a part of us to not know what's on the other side. And that's really scary to the mind and scary to the inner part of us, the small part of us that wants to control and know the next step. And I find that this is why we need it. We need to become more in touch with the mysticism and the mystery and the unknown as a collective, because we're so mental. And when we actually tap into that truth, life just weaves for us. It's actually so simple. It just takes the courage of coming into the flesh and really touching these parts of ourselves. And even if we feel queasy or cringy, letting that become the wild movement, making love with the feeling and just really saying yes to life and edging ourselves that way slowly.
Mm.
Mm.
Really, really true. I hear when we're letting go of trying so hard to find the answer and just surrender, that's when the answer becomes very clear and just flows to us instead of us rationalizing our way to the answer, which is what we're taught to do in our culture. And I want to mention that we're also doing this podcast just one day after Beltane, which was yesterday on this full moon. And the intention for Beltane is to celebrate the passion of life and the fertility of nature. And the rituals around Beltane are all about ecstatic embodiment and rejoicing. And it makes me think of how we lost those embodied ways to connect to our spirituality, to receive guidance. Instead, we're taught to sit really still. Even meditation can be a much more masculine way to try to seek guidance. So here instead, you're inviting us to dance and celebrate and get chaotic yourself, to tap into this chaos and go and find the chaos within you, embody that chaos and see the message that is usually, I want to also say, is very loving. Guidance is, yeah, the mind can be judging and that kind of dual thinking between us and others, but when we receive clear guidance, it's usually loving. So that's an important way that we can distinguish what is coming from the ego mind and what is coming from the body, the heart, the womb. So
and even the loving voice, it may not feel loving at first because it may challenge what our ego desires, right? But it is so loving because one truth, when that voice speaks, it's redirecting us to a path that is of most love, of highest path, even if we're like, no, I don't want that to be my truth. It's this wisdom that is beyond what we understand. And like you said, it's so loving, so gentle.
From what you're sharing, I hear this kind of idea is coming up, or this sentence in our head, but I have the feeling that some people may not experience their intuition in that way, their womb void Eros energy talking to them clearly. So what are some other ways that this energy can guide us in our life?
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I think there is this collective, like currently there's a lot of talk about the mind being bad, right? That this part of ourself that needs to be summoned by, like, it's almost like we've become so far this way that now we're becoming so far that way. And it's necessary. Like, we need the balance. That this has been so undernourished. One thing that I notice in my own life and with women I work with is sometimes it actually takes processing from the mind for a little bit before we can hear the voice. So I was sharing an example last night where when I went through a really heavy breakup that brought up a lot of deep trauma, early life trauma, I had to talk about it all the time. Like, anyone who would listen for as long as I could, like therapy, all the things I had to go through to just like empty, to process this out of my body through the verbal, through the mental. And it's actually so often a necessary part of hearing our truth, because we're making space as we process through words. This energy is coming out, and then at last, we finally can touch something deeper. Maybe we get tired of, using all this energy to circle with the mind, and we reach a point where there's just this stillness, this truth. So I find sometimes even just like processing things out loud, writing things out, eventually when we get all of that mental energy out, we can then touch something that's quiet, almost like when we cry a lot in grief, and then the clouds kind of clear and we feel this like trust in life after. And also, like, we can hear this voice this tender, loving voice of truth by committing to practices that tend to our body, that tend to our feminine. It's not so like right away. Sometimes it takes some tending to really attune to this voice. So being with our body, going outside, taking time to just be nothing, just laying on the earth and just becoming nothing, becoming one with the earth. Praying, take me from my mind, Mother. Support me in hearing my truth. There's all of these ways that we can slowly come back to this attunement. And I believe that all of us have this attunement that is accessible eventually, this voice that lives within us that we can all connect to. That is our compass, our guiding force, our gnosis, like this part of us that is destined to lead our life. At one point, we were led by this truth entirely. We didn't think so much about what it meant. We just moved in life from this primordial, original knowing. And yeah, it's such a dance between the mental, the psyche, and the body. And I think it's beautiful. I think we're meant to kind of oscillate back and forth. And they're both important. They both support us as humans.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, the mind and body. And another duality that comes up as you're speaking is that magnetic force within us that you described as Eros, and spirit, that is the consciousness. And it seems to me that there's a dance between them. There's something in us that wants something, but that something is what spirit also wants us to have. So we will get reinforcement to go towards that which we actually deeply desire, in synchronicities and messages. In sometimes I love how movies can speak to us, or music. You'll just hear the words that seem to be describing exactly what you're going through and actually clarifying what you're going through, so that you can just go back to simplicity and find the essence of really what it is that you want, or what is the next step for you. So there's like, I'm really feeling that it's almost like the soul and the spirit want to be connected together, and our mind is tricking us to make it seem so complicated, because there's a lot of conditioning, a lot of shame, a lot of taboos that are holding us back from being authentic with what we actually want.
I love that, Andrea, how like the outside is supporting us, the synchronicities, right? And the other woman who's embodying this energy that we're witnessing and saying, wow, that's possible for me. Like, it's so true. It's within and it's without. We're so supported. Yeah.
Yes. It's our area for growth. That's where we're meant to grow. And I was curious to know a little bit more about your growth and how that came about for you, because I imagine that you had a whole process to discovering your Eros and trust that wisdom within yourself and follow it. And where did that take you? So tell us a little bit about your story with that.
Wow. Where to begin? Oh my goodness. Well, in this life, I have a lot of, like in astrology, a lot of Scorpio, a lot of Capricorn, a lot of this part of me that is really destined to bring spirit and form, destined to touch something deep and kind of experience it, understand it, feel it. And the beginning of my path, like I'll just go starting from when I was 21 and I first found the world of spiritual events and Reiki and women's circles and all of this that was so exciting. It was so beautiful to finally feel like I had a space to let this spirit, this depth live, right? Like almost like this inner child within me was like, I can finally play. We can be fairies again. We can frolic in the forest and collect roses. And like, oh, I just remember that really young, like naive, but just like so excited feeling when I found the feminine mysteries and all of this. And at first, my path was very much like many of us, when we're finding this path at first, there was a lot of, like you said, meditation. So masculine, kind of sitting and connecting to energy and feeling energy, learning Reiki, which in some ways can be seen as more of a masculine structure. Like we're using this system to channel something that's so innate, like love energy, right? And I remember feeling this shift from this more externalized expression of my feminine, where I was beautifully, you know, at festivals and sparkles and connecting, and I love her. But there's this part of myself that was longing for something deeper. I had a feminine awakening, and then years later, I call it my deep feminine awakening, where Eros, this depth, summoned me. You know, I was moving through a lot of pain with my womb. I was moving through a breakup. I was feeling very locked out of my body, and almost like this will for life was dwindling. Like I felt this heaviness. And I realized, you know, through many different events, that there was this part of myself that I wasn't actually letting live. I was really operating from more of this external idea of what it meant to be all of these things, and what it meant to be feminine, these ideas of it. It was true, but at the same time, there was part of myself that was not fully online. And so when I found the work of embodiment and tantra in a deeper way, and all of these ways to really connect to my primordial power with my teachers, with feminine mystery schools, I was blown away at how much life force was living within me that was just looking to be expressed. And the way it was expressing in my life through, you know, drama and chaos and heaviness and weighing me. And it was just looking for a place to be exercised, looking for me to really own it, own my power, not the idea of what it means to be something, but just rooting in my hips and moving from life in a more true way, in a more humbled way. So in short, finding this beautiful path, enjoying it, being summoned by my body, being summoned by breakups, being summoned by trauma in my family, all these things happening, calling me inside, deeper, not this, but like really inside. And then learning how to work with this energy, how to be responsible for this power, and how to create a life where I can let this deep part of myself and this light maiden coexist together. And this has been my work now, is really honoring both, honoring this deep part of myself and also the light, and not kind of picking one or the other, but knowing that they can both coexist. Yeah.
That story, I find it quite archetypal. A lot of other people are going through a similar kind of initiation. This first, the rainbows and fairies and light and excitement. It's almost like it's just a hook to get hooked on the good vibes. Then there's like the descent into the underworld. It's unavoidable. Which is actually where we get all the strength and nourishment and initiation. And yet it's so painful at times. And it's very much about this ego death, like you described it. So I'm tempted to equate Eros with shadow too. The shadow that is wanting to be discovered, that holds all the gold for us. And that is actually leading us in a way. It's also a guiding force for us in our life to discover ourselves more deeply and to integrate this part of ourselves so that we can be both human and spirit at the same time. And even saying these words, I'm not so sure yet what it means, because it's about, I think, embracing that chaos and trusting it very deeply, that we do not know anything, like that humility that you mentioned. It's about receiving every second and giving at the same time of something that is your ego serves in a way that, but that doesn't come from your ego and your mind. So yeah,
that's exactly it. It's the ego being in service to the truth, and the truth being something that we can't fully understand, but that we feel, and that we are asked to trust and surrender the control to really trust that part. And it's a lifelong practice. We're all learning to trust the truth of our inner knowing. It's why we're human, I feel, is to just really merge with this really beautiful, generous part of ourselves that is within, guiding us. I would love to share a bit about the trickster, which I feel like you probably also know well in your life. The energy of the trickster, which I find is connected to Eros for women. I experienced this energy of the trickster showing up as a partner, a past partner, and being guided into this underworld part of myself. Like I was sharing a lot of these deep hidden traumas and deep hidden parts of myself that wanted to be expressed. And the beauty of the trickster, as the mythology goes, is the trickster finds, this young woman who was desiring to connect to her power, this unconscious power that lives within her. And the trickster is actually quite loving, but he comes in with this mysterious, seductive, kind of heavy, dark energy, and allures her to the other side, allures her to this like platonic energy where she's asked to touch this power, this chaos, this pain, this wild, this sexuality, this Eros, and experience it. And then when she finds it, she says, oh, I don't actually need to experience this level of pain and chaos and tumultuous relating to hold this. I can actually find this within myself, within my own practice. It's like we're guided by these outside energies or people or experiences to bring us to this power, so then we can actually reclaim it and say, oh, this is part of me. Let me see how I can actually connect to this part of me without my life blowing up for me to touch it. And for a long time, I would demonize this partner that I had. I would see him as, like I had a lot of egoic, there was pain attached to it. So I was really seeing him in a different light. And on the higher perspective, I can see the perfection of, the sun is beaming. I can see the perfection of why this part of my path led me here. I was being asked to connect to this power, this Eros, and find it within myself through this trickster-like relationship. So yeah, it just shows how perfect our paths are, that life is working for us.
I totally resonate with how our partners can just be such mirrors for ourselves, but sometimes really deep aspects of ourselves, and how everything that triggers us about them is something that we need to actually heal or reclaim for ourselves. I wonder what were, if you can share some of these big lessons for you, what was the things that you were able to reclaim once you realized that you didn't need this drama to live what you wanted to live through that relationship, but instead doing that work for yourself. So what were the key pieces? Because I suspect that there are major universal themes perhaps that women need to learn and integrate within themselves. So what were these for you?
Yeah, the medicine was really taking responsibility for my power. Seeing the ways I didn't want to be responsible for my life. I didn't want to be responsible for how much power lived within me. So I would externalize it. I would think that something was happening to me, right? And the more that I connected to my womb, to my body, to this inner part of myself, I saw, wow, like my unconscious is running my life. There's all of these deeper desires, these deeper things within myself that are coming out sideways, right? Like this desire to connect to my depth, my shadow, my sexuality in a deeper way. They were all real desires. They weren't really like there wasn't a clear connection to how to have those things. So the universe was responding to my desire, guiding me to this relationship, but it wasn't the way that I wanted it, right? And because I didn't have responsibility for my desire, for what I wanted, I wasn't actually attuned to this desire. It was unconscious. I didn't have like a responsibility for it to really bring it into my own life. Life was finding ways to bring it to me. And I was like, no, I don't want this shit. This is crazy. So after this relationship, I began to kind of get sober and see, where in my life am I looking for this energy? Where in my life am I parking my power? And where can I take it back and really get clear about how I want to experience it? So I really believe that at one point, as women, we had the temples, right? We had spaces to come and connect to our erotic energy and dance and connect to our body and our sexuality with each other, with those who came. And a lot of these old ways that we've lost, like not having these ways, we are just looking for ways to express this energy. And when I found that I can have this now, these temple arts, these are ways to express, these, ceremonies to go to hold all these things, I had somewhere to park my power. I had a way to be responsible for this energy, this desire within myself, and not think that I could only feel this energy through a relationship, that I didn't have to move through this chaos to feel alive. Really, Eros is asking us to feel alive. I felt very alive in this relationship. It didn't always feel good, but I felt very alive, like just raw in my emotions. And now that I have ways to really tend to this part of myself, I'm not in these connections anymore. I'm connecting to this energy within my own way, right? So I hope that makes sense, just how my desires are met because I wasn't responsible for them. So it didn't look the way I wanted them to. And now I understand it.
And it seemed that you had to learn, I want to say a new language, but it's also a new set of practices, a new way of living, like those different traditions that you've come across. You studied shamanism and tantra. This is like a whole other template that is offering you a new way to experience your power, because I think we're not necessarily shown or taught how that looks like and how it feels like. And so I think that's where the mind becomes useful too, in that first understanding before we can live it, to reprogram our ways of functioning in the world. And I love that you highlighted the owning your desire, and I want to say like voicing your desire, like putting words to it and claim it. Yes, this is what I want, actually, so that you can have it in the way that you want, which for me means a conscious way. It's not like an ego, oh, I want, to feel really good, and and all these superficial ways that we might want something. Typically in our culture, we're seeing like, oh, I want just pleasure. We live in a very hedonistic kind of culture, but instead you're choosing to do it consciously, to be present with the process and to not compromise yourself through it. And so I hear from what you're saying, this reclamation of your sovereignty, your sovereign choice to live in the way that you want. But to get there, there's this whole process first. And I think that creating this drama in our life is also part of the game to getting there. We can laugh about it afterwards, but in the moment, it feels like the end of the world.
So great. Yeah, it's so perfect. And yeah, like what you were just sharing, the owning it. And that brings me to my passion now of really supporting women in connecting to the womb and the womb heart voice channel. When we can really feel what we long for, tend to that longing and touch it, feel it in our heart, how tender that longing is, and express it. This is magic. When we can actually utilize this level of power, not have it, leaking all over, right? Leaking to all these, little relationships or like things that take our power, media, porn, whatever it may be, that is our hook, our addiction. When we can really connect to this power, let it nourish us, let it become clear within us, bring it up to our heart and speak it out. This is what I believe is magic. This is sex magic. This is weaving with the great universe. This is prayer. And prayer is a big part of the work I do with women. It's so simple, but so beautiful. When I hold womb ceremonies, we are really coming into what is our prayer? How can we speak it with conviction from our root, from our hips, from this womb space? And really just feel the tenderness of how we long for this. Our longing as women is the most beautiful thing. When we can reveal our tender longing, reveal our heart, this is everything. This softness and expressing this power, they go together, right? This deep, true desire coming up into our heart and being expressed, hey, I would just love to be your friend. It's so tender. I don't have many friends. This is my truth. Like this is an example, but just like the feeling of it coming out from our heart, out our throat, from the womb. And this is how we create magic in our life, I feel. This is the womb path, is really attuning, expressing and feeling these longings and tending to this part of ourselves, not just the spiritual and the mental, but even the physical, the foods we need, the rest we need, our cycles, the massage, the women's circles, the nature that supports us really tending to this sacred part of ourselves that is really our compass in this life.
Yes. I hear also the divine masculine in all of that, the discernment of what is not us, and the sword of the divine masculine that can cut through all the drama, all the illusion, and just like the sword is representing the truth, and just state that truth and be very clear. So perhaps in that drama, there's a process of defining what we're not as well, so that we can create those boundaries and enforce these boundaries. But I love how you describe that process to be very loving, because sometimes in our culture, we hear of boundaries in a very, very harsh way. And instead focusing on what you want instead of what you don't want and what the other person is doing, etc. You're really coming from that womb center to speak out from your perspective. And when we do that, I find that we're not, the other person cannot say no. You know what I mean? Like, because you're just stating facts about yourself. So they don't have, unless they're gaslighting you, which we should definitely be aware. Then they're coming into your territory of who you are and telling you who you are and what you feel. But that's a really beautiful process. And I'm just curious to know if you have any practice. I know you're going to lead us into a practice today, but is there something else that someone can do to practice speaking from that place in the moment, because I know for me, for example, I have my throat just completely locked down sometimes when I'm in situations where it's really, really hard for me to say anything, yes or no, or say my opinion. So is there a tip that you can give us that can help to open this channel from the womb, heart, and throat?
Absolutely. And I'll share a little bit of what you just shared too about the boundaries. It's like a teacher of mine shares that boundaries are not meant to have this fuck you energy, right? Like a boundary when it's like it's like part of ourself that we need to hold and be like, I see you. There's something you're angry about, but that's not for them to hold. All we're meant to do is, like we were sharing, express our tender truth, express this part of ourselves that we know is our truth. And that's it. Right. Um, of course it depends on the situation, but yeah, I just wanted to share that differentiation of like the two. And a practice in expressing this truth. It's so true that sometimes it's so hard to express. Maybe it's someone that there's a lot of karma, a lot of energy with, where it's scarier to express our truth because what would happen if it was received wrong? Maybe it's our parents who are afraid that we're no longer going to be loved, or maybe have a home if we live with them. And there's more of a risk to speak the truth. I think remembering that speaking our truth is loving to all, that when we are embodying this truth and speaking this truth, it is truly of service for everybody, ourselves, and those who receive it. We are embodying what it looks like to be sovereign, to be expressed in our truth, and that is a gift to the world. But some practices to really connect to this channel is sounding. So putting your hands on your womb, if you're a man, this Lord Dantian point, and just sounding, like letting your voice have permission to make sound, feeling in your body where the sound is coming from, where it's getting stuck, where it needs to be expressed. And when it comes to that moment that may feel really scary to express this truth, taking a moment and being with this part of yourself. Maybe it's a very young part that just needs to be affirmed that you are loved, that when this is done, you are still loved, that you still belong, and mothering, fathering that part of herself that just needs to know that their truth matters. And it's so beautiful when we start expressing this truth and being met by love in this truth. It begins to heal this belief, right? When we speak our truth and someone receives it with love, it's like reprogramming these pathways. And if they don't meet us with love and we meet ourselves with love, it's still reprogramming. It's a lot of this inner work, this inner self-love, and really attuning to what this truth is, right? Like if you don't believe in yourself, no one's going to believe in you. If you don't believe in your truth, then no one's going to hear you when you speak it. It reminds me of when you're at a dinner party and you're speaking and no one can hear you. It's like, do I even want to be heard? Like, is something in me not wanting to be heard? And really being with these parts of ourselves and loving these parts and taking our time.
Yes, I hear that. I also hear that perhaps practicing with people that we know are safe to share our truth with, because sometimes even with these people, it's hard because we're not used to. So that could be a nice way to start opening the voice. But I love all these reminders as well. The truth will set everyone free, not just us. Even if it's a no, the other person needs to hear that no, and it will be the right thing for them, because this is what your Eros is guiding you to. And therefore is the area for growth, for your growth, and for others as well, because we're all interdependent and growing together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for all this amazing discussion. I am so inspired and I feel my womb buzzing. And I'm curious to explore that some more with your practice that you were going to lead us into on this full moon.
Yes. Yes. And we'll go into a practice that is what I call embodied meditation. It's not meditation through the upper realm, it's a very active embodiment practice. So we can just start by closing your eyes and just feeling in this space, the temperature, maybe the sound, breathing, and you sense in around, really activating your senses. And as you find yourself here, breathing, hearing, feeling, begin to feel the energy in the mind, in the upper realm. Begin to drip down your back. Just imagining maybe honey or like a river dripping down the back of your head, this unconscious realm, down your spine, and to your root. So this river, this honey, taking these thoughts, breathing them in, and exhaling them down your spine, feeding all this energy to your womb. Breathing in, bringing the focus up into the mind, and then dripping it down to the roots, the womb, the tailbone, known as a dragon's tail, rooting this energy. And do that 2 more times, breathing in and exhaling down your back, your spine, to your womb. And when you feel like you have more energy now rooted in your hips, begin to bring your inhale to your womb. So breathing in, filling your womb up, all of this life force, this prana, this breath. Making her get really full. Holding your breath. And when you're ready, exhaling. We'll do that 2 more times. So really building this energy in the womb, expanding with your breath. Lots of space, letting your belly get big and wide. And exhaling when you're ready. Letting your exhale be audible, sound. 1 more, breathing all of this energy full into the womb. Full, expansive, like the ocean. And holding this time. Just noticing. And when you feel ready, exhaling to soften. And by now you may feel a lot of power, a lot of life force in your womb. Maybe energy that was somewhere else in your body is now rooted between your hips. I invite you to begin to rotate your hips just in a way that feels natural. There's no right or wrong, just letting your hips move you. How do your hips want to move? not thinking about doing it right. It's really letting your hips take you over. There's nowhere else to be but right in this movement. Locating where your breath is in your body. Just feeling this energy. This energy is the same energy that rotates the earth, that blooms the flowers in the spring, that literally creates a life, baby, if that is part of our path. So with your hands on this womb space, feel the power. Just longs to live. Maybe your hips rotate faster, maybe they go slower, moving directions. Really just letting this internal process take you over. And if it feels true, inviting some sounds, maybe sounds that may feel weird to your mind, but this is not a practice for the mind. Let them out. Maybe you feel some tenderness, some joy. Letting your body now just move this energy. Your hands come up. Maybe your tongue sticks out. Your tongue is connected all the way down to your root, your tailbone. Just feeling this primordial power, this earth energy in your body. And I invite you to really breathe here and just take in this moment. Let yourself have this moment. You one with this power. This is yours to hold, yours to create with, yours to love and share and tend to. Just feeling whatever you're feeling. Maybe it feels hard to feel this much power. Just be with that feeling. Maybe there's some numbness, maybe there's a lot of energy. Just let yourself be loved in this feeling. When you feel complete in this practice of tending to this Eros, this womb power, bringing your hands to your womb, your heart. And just knowing that this practice is simply going inside and descending the mind and feeling your hips is accessible to at any time. That as you grow this relationship with your womb, your Eros, she'll become more and more online in your life, creating so much beauty, so much love. I will just have you on your knees in awe of the beauty that is your life. So just offering gratitude and reverence and humility for this power that lives inside of you, that you are in service to. Hugging yourself. Loving all parts of yourself that brought you to this moment. Again, feeling the temperature in the room, the sound, the breath, opening your eyes and being in awe of this wild ride, this wild game we're living.
Yes, thank you so much for that. I felt so much warmth in my body, and it was spreading and it was moving me. And I have to admit that I was doing this all of last night. I was in ceremony and I felt the medicine moving me. So it's something that's quite familiar, but it wasn't the first time. So perhaps something we can develop with these more subtle meditations to just listen and allow ourselves to move. Thank you for the guidance with that. I love your voice. It's so warm and nourishing.
Sometimes the subtle practices are so effective. And that's the power of the feminine path, is just remembering that the subtlety is so beautiful and so opening.
And we need to resensitize ourselves to remember, to feel again. And so going into subtle practices is really a way to do that, to listen and wait and be patient and loving instead of trying. Actually, I think we need both. We need the ecstatic shaking embodiment and then just the subtle listening and going within too. Thank you so much again. I'm tempted to call you Womb Priestess. Yeah, it just came to
Priestess for sure. Sometimes I just try and leave all the identity to really feel the truth, but there's a power in claiming who we are, right? Because we're here to really lead and support this evolution, right? So I'm a womb priestess. Yeah.
I find that in the tantric path, it's more about transforming the ego than getting rid of it, transforming it for it to serve our true purpose. And words are so powerful. And especially us women, we're so shy. So many women still are very shy to reclaim their titles. I'm a healer. I'm a teacher. I'm a medicine woman. These are powerful titles that were taken from us, and so we need to claim them if it resonates. And if not, finding new words to define what you do and who you are, and you being of service to your community.
The evolution of what we're here to embody, it's so true. And it's so important to really own that and hold that power. Yeah. Thank you so much, High Priestess.
Thank you for your medicine. And I want to encourage those who are listening to connect with you, to find you online in your womb courses or in person in Toronto, and perhaps book some sessions with you to experience some more of that womb wisdom and womb power in their body.
Yes, online womb journeys, which are really beautiful quantum journeys that guide you into the womb energy, support you in embodying it. Online mentorship, which is more long-term, and then also group programs. in-person ceremonies, all this goodness. Yeah.
And I'm really excited to co-create with you back in Toronto.
This is a magical summer, and we're both at the Tantra Festival in September.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really
We're
excited.
facilitating. Yeah.
Lots of magic to come. Until then, keep well, keep shining your light, and I look forward to reconnecting very soon.
Happy eclipse, my love. I'll
Happy
see you
full moon.
soon.